Have you ever noticed how the loudest person in the room is often the one who knows the least? The one with the strongest opinions, the one who speaks with absolute certainty, yet the moment you scratch beneath the surface, you realize their confidence isn't built on wisdom, but on ignorance. It's a strange paradox of life that the less some people know, the more convinced they are that they have all the answers. And here's the truth. This is not just annoying, it's dangerous. Because when people who don't know much start believing they know everything, they stop growing. They stop listening and they start spreading that same false sense of certainty to others. There is a psychological phenomenon behind this, and maybe you've heard of it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It explains why those with the least knowledge or skill in an area often have the greatest confidence in their abilities, while those who are genuinely intelligent and skilled tend to doubt themselves. Why? Because the smart ones know how much they don't know. The wise recognize the vastness of knowledge, while the foolish can't see beyond the narrow walls of their own perspective. And if you're not careful, you could fall into this trap too. Ignorance breeds overconfidence because when people know very little about something, they are blind to the complexity and challenges that truly exist beneath the surface. This blindness makes them feel as though they understand more than they actually do, and that misplaced certainty gives them a dangerous sense of confidence. The less someone knows, the easier it is for them to assume they already grasp the entire picture, while in reality, they are only scratching the surface. Think of it like standing at the base of a mountain. You can only see a small part of the slope, and from that limited view, you may think climbing it is easy, but the higher you go, the more you realize just how tall and treacherous the mountain actually is. That is the essence of ignorance breeding overconfidence. It makes people underestimate the challenge, overestimate their own abilities, and ultimately close themselves off from the truth. One of the reasons this happens is because human beings crave certainty. Certainty feels safe, it gives us a sense of control, and it feeds the ego. Ignorant people cling to their beliefs, no matter how shallow, because it makes them feel intelligent and secure. They lack the knowledge to see what they are missing, so their minds paint a picture that is far simpler than reality. On the other hand, truly knowledgeable people are more aware of what they don't know. They see the gaps in their understanding, they recognize the complexity, and that awareness humbles them. It doesn't mean they doubt themselves in a crippling way, but it means they are far less likely to speak with absolute certainty about things they know are bigger than themselves. You can see this phenomenon everywhere in daily life. A person who read one article about finance suddenly believes they can predict the stock market better than seasoned investors. Someone who watches a video on health might think they know more about medicine than a doctor who has studied for a decade. Even in conversations about success and happiness, the ones who have accomplished the least often have the most to say. Their confidence is not rooted in mastery, but in ignorance of the details and the difficulties that mastery requires. That is why it is often said that a little knowledge is more dangerous than none at all. The problem with this kind of overconfidence is that it not only limits personal growth, but also misleads others. People who speak with authority, but without true understanding, influence those around them. Their misplaced confidence spreads like a virus, convincing others to adopt their shallow perspective. And when enough people believe in false certainty, mediocrity becomes the norm. The tragedy is that many never escape this cycle because they are too blind to their own blindness. They don't question themselves because they believe they are already right. They don't grow because they see no reason to. Ignorance robs them twice. First, of knowledge, and second, of the awareness that they even need it. True intelligence requires humility because wisdom is not measured by how much you claim to know, but by how willing you are to acknowledge the limits of your understanding. Humility allows a person to stay open, curious, and adaptable, while arrogance closes the mind and locks it in a prison of self-deception. When someone believes they already have all the answers, they stop searching, they stop questioning, and they stop learning. But when a person accepts that they don't know everything, they become a lifelong student of life, constantly seeking to grow, to expand, and to sharpen their perspective. The greatest minds in history were not those who claimed certainty in every matter, but those who embraced humility and admitted that their knowledge was always incomplete. When you think about the people who rise to extraordinary levels of success, you will notice that their defining quality is not stubbornness, but teachability. They are willing to sit in the position of a student even when they are masters. They are willing to ask questions, to listen, to learn, and to change their views when better evidence or deeper insight appears. Humility gives them the freedom to adapt, and that adaptability makes them powerful. On the other hand, the ones who think they are already smart resist new ideas, ignore feedback, and build their identities around being right rather than being better. This is why arrogance and ignorance are such close companions, because once the ego convinces you that you know enough, your mind becomes stagnant and growth dies. Humility is also the foundation of true confidence. Many people mistake humility for weakness, but in reality, it is the opposite. It takes strength to admit that you don't know. It takes courage to ask for help. It takes confidence to admit your mistakes and use them as stepping stones toward wisdom. Arrogant people shout louder to cover up their insecurity, but humble people have nothing to prove. Their quiet strength comes from knowing that they don't need to pretend, they just need to keep growing. This is why the humble often outperform the arrogant over time, because their minds remain open to improvement while arrogance shuts the door on opportunity. In practical life, humility shows up in simple but powerful ways. It's the willingness to listen more than you speak, to learn from people who are younger or less experienced, to accept correction without letting pride get in the way. It's the discipline of challenging your own beliefs, asking yourself whether you might be wrong, and welcoming perspectives that are different from your own. Humility keeps the heart teachable and the mind sharp. Without it, even the smartest person can become blind to their own flaws and sabotage their own potential. With it, even someone of average ability can rise to brilliance by continually building on what they know. True intelligence isn't about winning arguments or proving superiority. It's about embracing humility so that growth never ends. Ego is the enemy of growth because it convinces people to protect their image rather than pursue improvement. When someone is led by ego, their primary goal is not to become better, but to look better. They want to appear smart, successful, or important, even if it means hiding their flaws, denying their mistakes, or rejecting any feedback that challenges them. This mindset traps them in mediocrity because growth requires honesty, and honesty is impossible when pride clouds the truth. You cannot fix what you refuse to face, and you cannot learn what you believe you already know. Ego makes people blind to their weaknesses, and as a result, they repeat the same mistakes over and over again, while believing they are moving forward. The reason ego is so destructive is because it thrives on comfort. Growth is uncomfortable. It demands humility, discipline, and change, but the ego craves validation. It seeks constant reassurance that everything is fine, that you are already enough, that no effort is required. When you let ego dominate your decisions, you avoid challenges that could expose your weaknesses. And by avoiding them, you avoid the very experiences that could make you strong. People who are ruled by ego prefer to stay in circles where they are the most knowledgeable, the most praised, and the least challenged. But that environment is a cage disguised as a throne. It may feel good in the moment, but it slowly kills growth. In relationships, ego prevents people from admitting when they are wrong. Instead of apologizing, they defend. Instead of listening, they argue. Instead of understanding, they compete to be right. This ruins connection, destroys trust, and turns every conversation into a battle. In careers, ego stops people from taking feedback from mentors or colleagues. Instead of learning from mistakes, They make excuses or shift blame. Over time, this refusal to grow makes them irrelevant, while those with humility and self-awareness surpass them. In personal development, ego whispers that discipline is unnecessary, that learning is optional, that change can wait. And so dreams are delayed, potential is wasted, and years are lost. The most successful individuals understand that the ego must be kept in check. They know that every win carries the temptation of arrogance, and every bit of progress can make pride louder. That is why they constantly remind themselves to stay grounded, to remember that they are never finished products. They actively seek out environments that challenge them, people who stretch them, and feedback that humbles them. They would rather face the sting of correction now than the pain of failure later. Ego-driven people see feedback as an attack on their worth, but growth-driven people see it as a gift for their future. The truth is that ego is not destroyed in a single moment. It has to be managed daily. Every time you choose humility over pride, curiosity over certainty, learning over defending, you weaken the ego's grip on your life. The less space ego takes up, the more room there is for growth. When you let go of the need to always be right, you open the door to becoming better. Surroundings shape perception because the people you spend your time with directly influence how you see yourself and what you believe about your own intelligence and potential. If you constantly surround yourself with people who know less than you, you will always feel like the smartest in the room. But that feeling is an illusion. It gives you a false sense of superiority while robbing you of the chance to grow. Growth happens when you are challenged, when you are stretched, and when you are forced to confront what you don't know. If you never put yourself in environments where people are smarter, sharper, and more experienced than you, you will remain stuck in the comfort zone of mediocrity. Many people fall into the trap of building circles where they are the center of knowledge and authority. At first, it feels good because the ego loves being praised and validated, but over time, it becomes a prison. You begin to believe you are further along than you actually are, and that belief stops you from seeking out new opportunities to learn. This is why so many talented individuals plateau. They rise to a certain level, surround themselves with people who cannot challenge them, and then stop growing. Their perception of themselves is inflated by their environment, but reality will always catch up with them. The opposite is also true. When you place yourself in rooms where you are not the smartest, you feel uncomfortable, maybe even insecure. But that is the soil where real growth happens. Being around people who know more than you forces you to raise your standards. It pushes you to ask better questions, to work harder, and to expand your understanding. What once felt intimidating becomes inspiring, and your perception shifts from thinking you've arrived to realizing how much further you can go. That shift in perception is what separates those who stay average from those who achieve greatness. It's important to realize that your environment is not just about friends or colleagues. It includes what you consume, the content you watch, the books you read, and the conversations you engage in. If all of your input comes from shallow sources, your thinking will remain shallow. But if your input challenges you, teaches you, and stretches your imagination, your perception of what's possible will expand. Surroundings either elevate your vision or shrink it. They either push you to grow or lull you into complacency. Choosing the right environment requires humility, because it means being willing to feel small for a while, being willing to admit that you have more to learn. But the discomfort of being challenged is temporary, while the growth it creates is permanent. Your perception of yourself, your intelligence, and your potential is not fixed. It is constantly shaped by the people and the environments you expose yourself to. If you want to become truly wise, seek out the rooms that make you feel like a beginner again, because those are the rooms that will shape you into the person you are meant to become. Wisdom is quiet, foolishness is loud, because those who are truly wise understand that knowledge does not need to be shouted to prove its worth. The wise recognize that truth stands on its own. It does not need endless arguments or constant validation. They have the patience to listen, the humility to observe, and the discipline to speak only when their words carry real weight. In contrast, the foolish often feel the need to dominate every conversation, to assert their opinions without reflection, and to drown out others in an attempt to appear intelligent. This loudness is not a sign of strength, but of insecurity, because people who are unsure of themselves often compensate with volume and aggression. You can see this dynamic play out in every setting. In classrooms, the student who brags about how much they know is usually the one missing the deeper lesson, while the quiet learner in the back is absorbing everything. In workplaces, the loud employee who interrupts every meeting often has the least value to add, while the calm professional who speaks only occasionally delivers insights that change the direction of the entire discussion. Even in personal relationships, those who shout the most to prove they are right usually do so because they lack the maturity to admit they could be wrong. The loudness of the foolish is their shield, a way to cover up insecurity and mask the fact that their arguments are weak. Wisdom, on the other hand, carries a different energy. It does not rush to prove itself. It does not feel threatened by opposing views. Instead, it observes, reflects, and chooses the right moment to speak. Wise people are secure enough to stay silent until their words can genuinely add value. They understand that silence is not weakness, but power. When they finally do speak, people listen, not because of how loud they are, but because of the depth behind their words. Their calmness commands respect in a way that noise never can. The reason wisdom tends to be quiet is because the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. That realization makes you cautious. It makes you careful with your words because you respect the weight of truth. Foolishness, by contrast, comes from ignorance, and ignorance makes people reckless. When someone doesn't know the depth of a subject, they oversimplify it and speak with false confidence. They mistake certainty for intelligence, not realizing that true intelligence is more often found in questions than in declarations. Learning to embody quiet wisdom means resisting the temptation to prove yourself in every conversation. It means listening more than speaking and thinking before responding. It means allowing your actions to speak louder than your words, because real credibility is built through consistency, not volume. The quiet strength of wisdom has always outlasted the noise of foolishness, and it always will, because noise may capture attention for a moment, but depth creates impact that lasts far beyond the moment. Lifelong learning prevents stagnation because the moment you stop growing, you begin to decline. Knowledge and wisdom are not destinations you reach once and for all. They are journeys that require constant effort. The world is always changing. New ideas are being discovered, and industries are constantly evolving, which means the information that felt complete yesterday may be outdated tomorrow. If you convince yourself that you already know enough, you risk being left behind. But if you commit to continuous learning, you remain adaptable, relevant, and capable of facing whatever challenges come your way. The greatest danger of believing you know it all is that it blinds you to opportunities for growth. You stop asking questions, you stop exploring, and you stop challenging yourself. This creates a false sense of comfort that quickly turns into stagnation. People who refuse to learn end up repeating the same mistakes, trapped in the same patterns, because they never gain new insights that could help them move forward. On the other hand, those who embrace learning as a lifelong practice never stay stuck for long, because every lesson, every book, every conversation becomes a stepping stone toward greater wisdom. Lifelong learners understand that intelligence is not fixed, it is cultivated. You don't have to be born a genius to achieve greatness, but you do need the discipline to keep expanding your mind. Each time you study something new, you stretch your perspective. Each time you expose yourself to unfamiliar ideas, you sharpen your thinking. Each time you allow yourself to be challenged, you develop resilience. Learning does not just add information to your mind, It transforms the way you see the world. And that transformation is what keeps you moving forward instead of standing still. This principle applies to every area of life. In careers, the people who advance are the ones who keep improving their skills, while those who stop learning eventually become irrelevant. In relationships, growth comes from learning how to communicate better, how to understand others more deeply, and how to manage conflict with maturity. In personal development, learning gives you the tools to build discipline, strengthen your mindset, and achieve your goals. No matter what area of life you look at, growth is impossible without continuous learning. The beauty of lifelong learning is that it creates humility. The more you learn, the more you realize how much there is left to discover. This awareness keeps you curious, open-minded, and hungry for growth. It keeps your ego in check and reminds you that no matter how much progress you make, there is always more to strive for. People who embrace this mindset never run out of energy or purpose because they understand that life itself is a classroom, and every day carries a lesson. Stagnation is the slow death of potential, but learning keeps your potential alive. It keeps your mind sharp, your spirit engaged, and your future filled with possibility. Those who commit to lifelong learning remain students of life forever. And because of that, they never stop growing, never stop evolving, and never stop moving closer to the best version of themselves